if you don't want to work in the field you studied, joining us, we have our career coach, Sarah Vermunt. She's going to help you. Sarah, this has to be a big one. I mean, you've got some stats on how huge it is, you know, to be in a field and then decide this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Right. So some really interesting stats for everybody at home. Only 7% of people have the same career goals at 25 as they had at 17. And you might remember 17 is the age where you actually have to choose what you want to go to school for.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that means 93% of people are getting out of school and going, now what do I do?
Right.
And also, about 3/4 of people, actually exactly 3/4, 75% of people work in a field that's not directly related to what they studied.
Yeah,
that's most of us.
That's the norm, I would say. I mean, if someone's actually in a field that they studied in, I think that is such an anomaly. So we shouldn't be surprised that when you get out of school, you decide this is actually not the path I want to take. Also, you're a young person and you haven't been out there to really see what the reality is.
Yeah,
right?
and also, like, I think the statistics make sense, and I think the reality makes sense. You know, if you can think back to who you were at 17, you're probably much different than that 17-year-old was, right?
Yes.
We change a lot in our late teens and all through our 20s. Like, that's probably the biggest period of life where you're going to change a lot. So it's not surprising that your career interests are going to change.
The good news is that it is never too late to switch careers. I think a lot of it is just about getting over the fear. So you have a client in the audience, Marissa.
Yeah.
Marissa, you studied radio and television, you got into the field, and what did you find?
After a while, like, I had it all mapped out, like, completely. Like, I went to school for this. I worked very hard to get in school for it. And as I got deeper into my career, I was like, oh my God, like, this doesn't feel right. It does not feel right. And I'm like, well, what if? Am I just going to be in this forever? And I'm like, it's just not, like, working for me, straight up.
So you reached out to Sarah, and what was your was there any hesitation of jumping out of that field and going into something new?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
A lot of fear of actually making the switch. And I'm a personal trainer, and I'm like, well, I can't get paid to do something I really like, right? Like, there's that fear, and judgment from, you know, your friends, your classmates. Everyone expects you to do this, your parents. It comes from all angles.
That's right. Okay, but now you're a personal trainer.
I am.
How do you feel about that?
I love it.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're in the field that you love doing, and they always say if you love what you're doing, you're never going to feel like you're at work. That's the feeling I think most people are striving for, but it's very rare to actually find that. So the whole expectation, I think it's true. Like, I would be scared of what my parents would think, say, or, you know, my little community that had supported me while I was doing my studies. How do you get past that?
Well, I've been doing this work for a while now, helping people make career changes, and I find there's three main things people sort of have to get over.
Yeah.
So the first is figuring out what you actually want. Like, that was a part of what Marissa struggled with when we worked together. It's like, I know I don't want to do this, but I don't know what I do want.
Right.
So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is then getting over any fear associated with actually moving to that. You know, like she mentioned, fear of what your parents will think, fear about money, fear of like friends and colleagues about making that shift. And then once you know what you want, once you're dealing with the fear around it, then you're ready for some strategy to actually make the change. The trouble is most people jump to strategy right away. Like, what's the first thing anyone does when they don't like their job? They do a panicked job search, which is a strategy thing. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it's very hard to actually move in the right direction.
That is true. Okay, so you help people through that process of figuring out, what do you like?
Yeah, including the fear. Like, there's a huge emotional and psychological part of making a career change that you have to confront if you're going to be willing to do it.
And I guess I would say also your community, your people, your parents actually don't want you to be stuck in a job you hate for the rest of your life.
That's right. The thing about parents, though, like, so for anyone at home, maybe you have a kid who's in school or a 20-something, it's like, you know, you're worried about your kid's happiness and you're worried about their safety, right?
Yes.
So it's almost like those two things are at odds, because if there's any uncertainty around what they're doing in life, really those fears around safety ramp up, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But all you can say to them is, I'm pursuing what my passion is, and at the other side of this, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
That's all we're striving for in life.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've gotten past the fear, you've done a little strategy, you've talked to Sarah, you've figured out your new career, and then you have to get into that new career.
Yeah, and that's a tricky thing too, right? One of the best pieces of advice I can give to people is actually talk to people doing the work you want to do.
Yeah.
Don't just follow them on Instagram, because those are the highlights. Like, you want the good, the bad, and the ugly about this field you want to move into. I always tell people, if you want to jump ship, inspect the lifeboat for holes first. Like, talk to real people doing the actual work, so you can see if your ideas about what you think you want are actually what it's like.
Really good advice. I love that.